Welcome back to the Tuesday weekend. This week we are talking about substitutions, and I want to look right now at what happens sometimes when the distributor sends you the wrong thing. I mean, we've all made orders. Well, not all of us. I don't order DoorDash or delivery like that. I don't like to pay people to bring me food if I could go get it myself. That's all. Minor thing. But you show up, you expect a cheeseburger, and instead they send you the fillet of fish. Ugh. But it's bad when the menu says Roma tomatoes and the distributor sends beefsteak. It's worse when the menu says heirloom tomato and what gets delivered are those overripe, underripe, or just completely flavorless, mealy, just red. Bleh.
The one I don't get, and maybe you guys can explain it to me, but people they'll order a burger like a no tomato on the burger. I'm like, no problem. Oh, can I get extra ketchup for the fries in the burger? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't.
Well,
Okay.
okay. With that one, it's akin to the whole, you give a 4-year-old blueberries and some of them are sweet and some of them are a little
Mhm.
sour and some of them are mushy and some of them are firm. And so like tomatoes are all over the place.
Yeah.
Ketchup is ketchup. In Pittsburgh, you could get the Heinz ketchup from the source and it will taste the same as if you get it in San Diego. So,
Yeah.
I think for that, but also
Texturally, like some people don't like warm tomatoes or warm lettuce. They were like,
sure.
they want it on the side, and I'm like, I get it. I have a buddy who's like that, who's like, I don't like my tomatoes warm, but is drowning his burger in ketchup, drowning his fries in ketchup. And I get it. There's like equal parts sugar to tomato in ketchup. So it's like,
That's it. Exactly. There's a little bit of vinegar and there's a whole bunch of sugar in there. And I think that, yeah, that combination, and of course salt. One of the kitchens I ran, I'd asked the vendor for Cambazola, which is this rich, creamy blue cheese, the love child of a Camembert and a Gorgonzola. And he assured me he'd be able to get it. But what usually got substituted was the commodity 5-pound bag of blue cheese crumbles, which is not even close to the same thing. And when he was finally able to get the real thing for me, the price was so high that I actually figured out it was cheaper for me to go to the grocery store in town and actually order the wheels directly from the specialty cheesemonger in the store. And it saved me almost like $30 over what my vendor was getting me. So anyway, substitutions. Sometimes they're unavoidable. Sometimes even at the vendor, things run out. Avocados, I seem to get that a lot. And there's not really a good substitute for an avocado. And Matt, I'll start with you. Are there any times that come to mind where you have ordered one thing and something very different has shown up?
I mean, all the time. It's like, especially when we're making a new dish for the menu and we see on the produce sheet or we go to the farm and we pick up produce and they're like, oh, we have an abundance of Salanova lettuce. And I'm like,
Mhm.
great, we can make a salad and I can run a salad and, I don't have to get that watered down stuff that you get through some specialty produce places. And I'm like, okay, I can come here every morning, pick up 2 or 3 cases, and we're set for a couple of days. But then you put it on the menu, and next day your farmer hits you up and goes, "Hey, we don't have any salad today, salad nova
Right,
today."
right.
And
Oh,
he goes,
sorry.
can you substitute for chicories?" I go, "You're taking a salad that's super sweet and like savory to something very bitter. There's nothing wrong with I love chicories. I love radicchio, Treviso, all that. But it's like now I have to change the menu for the
Exactly.
salad.
Maybe even that like endive or whatever was a part of it, but it's not wasn't going to be the whole thing. Right. But I had a similar problem too with my actually better produce guy was like, oh yeah, I got Romanesco in this week. Great. I love it. It looks great on a plate. If you're unfamiliar, the little Fibonacci
Oh yeah,
sequence
it's
broccoli.
beautiful.
Yeah. And then so I ordered 3 cases and one case shows up and 2 cases of broccoli. And it's like, oh great, I've got broccoli now. I made soup. It's fine. But like I didn't have that same excitement for putting that more prestige item on there. If you tell me you have it, then I'm going to order it. If you don't have it, then yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. I really dislike like liquor vendors. Well, I mean, vendors are always trying to push stuff. They want to get rid of stuff. Liquor
mhm.
vendors are always trying to get rid of stuff that they can't move. And they're like, we'll give you a little deal or something. And sometimes that happens, and what you buy and start using becomes wildly popular. And you're just like, hey, we need another case of this. Like, oh yeah, we'll sell you 2 for 1. And it's like, wow, great. That's helping our liquor cost amazingly. So we can put this brand new cocktail that one of our guys or girls came up with on, and we're selling them like hotcakes right now. And then the week after that you've bought some that 2 for 1, it's like, yeah, we don't have it anymore. We ran out of our stock. We're not going to carry it anymore. And when they drop that one on you, it's never like a, hey, we're going to run out of, we're not going to be selling Buffalo Trace after the end of the month. And they're telling you, say, now on the 5th. And you're like, okay, that means it gives me a while to modify things and change things up. No. Most times it's literally the last day of the month. Oh, we're not carrying this anymore on your next order. It's like, we're completely out. It's an ingredient on one of our like menu cocktails. Now we have to reprint all of our menus because we can no longer get the spirit from you. Who's carrying it? And it's like, well, no one's carrying it for at least a couple of months, but the distillery is saying they're not going to have some till April or whatever. And it's like, great. So this happened after COVID, especially. There were lots of liqueurs like Shinar and Amara and stuff. Like a lot of the Italian liqueurs, especially that are used in a lot of craft cocktails, became increasingly difficult to find. Like you couldn't find it from distributors. So you're starting to go look at the liquor stores, and liquor stores don't carry that much, in flavoring Amaros and things like that. And then you had restaurants like selling them back and forth. It's like, hey, how many bottles do you have? Can we get 1 bottle of this so we can still make these cocktails? And then when it came back, the price, of course, was almost double, and it never really went that far back down. And that does happen in the liquor industry a lot. We all know the Pappy Van Winkle thing, where it gets released when it gets released, and then it lasts about 27 minutes when it gets to the bar because people have been waiting 9 months. You see that with Blanton's and such. Working at a hotel out here in San Diego, people from all over the country, they are amazed that we get Buffalo Trace. And we order Buffalo Trace by the case. It's not a big deal out here, but they can't find it back in the Midwest, apparently. I had a big group in this week. They're like, well, we really want to get that. And I'm like, man, there's a liquor store 1 block away. Go buy a couple of bottles and take it home.
I was going to say, I've got a half a bottle right over there, but I suppose Nevada is not the Midwest.
No. It's got to be east of Colorado. Josh.
Right. That
I just want to make that statement right now. The Midwest is east of Colorado.
There's a Plains state region too. Anyway.
Well, they call themselves the Midwest now too. They've all decided that they're the Midwest from basically Tennessee to Colorado.
See, and I disagree with that. As somebody who actually grew up in the Midwest, and if anybody calls Wisconsin or Illinois not the Midwest, you have no understanding. That all right, Ohio. Maybe Ohio's kind of that weird, like it's not quite mid-Atlantic, it's not quite Midwest. Rust Belt, you're the Rust Belt. But like Kansas, okay, Iowa, sure. Missouri is kind of that borderline between the South and the Midwest. But all right, you're close enough, I'll include you. But like Kansas, Nebraska, y'all's the Plain States. You're a different thing. It's fine.
That and Midwest should be west of the Mississippi. When there was a river big enough to stop expansion of the country for several years, that's kind of a nice dividing line of like now.
And speaking of rivers, actually, one of the other substitution things that I was thinking about is when I was at the fish counter, some like the oysters we got in, and all right, often they actually came from the Kennebec River in Maine, and those were just routinely good. They were farmed, but it was just a consistently high quality farm. And sure, sometimes you get the Androscoggin River ones in, and they were okay too. And then occasionally none of those were available, and they'd start just kind of like filling the oyster order with whatever
they had
area they had. And that could be, oysters do really range in quality. And so, it could be almost anything that would show up, not just quality, but size. If you show up and you're that big, and I'm used to getting the ones that are that big, then my regulars that are buying them know the difference, across the room.
I go down the street here to get oysters like once a week, just because they have them on happy hour, and it's always the same ones. They have their own oyster farm, and I kind of believe that I haven't had a wild oyster in probably decades. I think every oyster I've eaten is farmed because they're just easier to get. But there was once, and the oysters, they're farmed oysters. They're smaller. They go from Kumamoto to maybe like a small medium size. They're not very large. And then one day I come in and order my order, and it's usually 20 oysters because they're smaller, and and they put down literally these beefsteak size of my hand oysters, and I'm like, what in the absolute, like, oh yeah, they're really big today, and I'm like, these aren't the same oysters. I'm like, well, they are. I'm like, they're definitely not. Why are you telling me this? I know they're not the same oysters.
Exactly.
I'm like, you're not telling me something the size of a silver dollar is now the size of my hand, and it's the same oyster. And you guys said, oh yeah, we'll just take those. That's fine.
One guy at the fish counter who had asked if the mussels were farmed or wild, and of course they're farmed.
Yeah.
And he kind of made a stink about it, and it's like, you're at a fish counter in suburban Nashville. Where do you think the mussels come from? Like what? Where? Yeah. Like I mean, absolutely. You can make the effort and get the wild mussels, but that our distributor doesn't carry them, and I can't really go outside of my distributor. It's not like this is Josh's fish market. This is, I'm in part of a corporate structure here. So anyway,
Josh's Fish Market, home of the wild, scraped off of a whale mussels.
Exactly. It's like, oh yeah,
behind the whale, scrape them off the tail when they breach and stuff. It's $1,700 a pound.
Right. No, it's my friends in Lake Michigan trying to get rid of the quagga mussels, so they just scrape them off the side of the boat and, ship them to me. I rinse them off. They're good.
Yeah, that's fine. Like you said, when the distributors don't have what you need, it makes it really difficult. I mean, especially when it's a main menu item.
Especially when it's the main thing. Well, and even sometimes chicken breasts, because again, we would get a normal, I forget I think it was the 5 to 7 ounce. It's a 50-pound case with basically 4 vacuum sealed bags in it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes those breasts were a whole lot bigger, and sometimes they were a whole lot smaller. And when I'm trying to meet a regular portion for a chicken sandwich, that just makes that tricky, just tricky. Or another example that my wife has had to deal with quite a bit is legs of lamb, because sometimes they get sent the 2-pound, like, caveman, like the medieval times, like chomping thing. Yeah. And sometimes they get the cute little petite, which, like, all right, I guess 2 of those is a portion on the plate, but how are you, like, just if it's stew meat, okay, it doesn't matter. But yeah, that just kind of makes it difficult to run a kitchen sanely.
First off, you can blame the state of Utah for the lamb thing. That's my home state's fault, because we used to have the largest lamb farm in the entire country, and it's up in Morgan, Utah. Morgan lamb was known worldwide, literally. And then the dad died, and he had 7 kids, and none of them wanted to have a lamb farm over the several hundred acres they had. So they split it up and put condos on it and closed it all down. And literally 90% of the restaurants that got lamb in the Western United States, especially, that's where they got it. That was suddenly just gone. Like they didn't even finish the lamb. They shipped the lamb to other companies and sold all the lambs to just sold everything and just got rid of it all in like a month. Where I was working at a restaurant, and they were just like, well, we can't get lamb anymore. Yeah. Or they didn't know where, and the price wasn't right. And yeah, it actually caused a huge vacancy in that. Secondly, when you said medieval times, I immediately thought of, can I get a fork? There are no forks in medieval times. Hence, there are no forks at medieval times. Well, I'm drinking Pepsi. It's like, dude, I'm just trying to work here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Can I get the Diet Dr. Pepper with that? Absolutely.
Let's start with Diet Dr. Pepper.
All right. Well, let's take one more break, and then we'll get back to some final thoughts on substitutions, because I think there's more to go. So stay tuned.